Pack Vitality. I'm Matt Banwart. My wife, Caitlin, and I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. Today, Caitlin and I are going to be talking about the 7 cons of CrossFit. Yes, I know, scary stuff. Here we go. So here, I'm just going to list them off really quick. I will get right into number 1. Let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. So number 1 is random programming. Can't wait for that one. Number 2 is no clear progression. Number 3 is temptation to attempt advanced movements. Number 4 is leaderboard pressure. Number 5 is high intensity all of the time. Number 6 is variable coaching quality. And then finally, number 7 is limited focus on individual needs. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. I love it when you're here. Let's get right into number 1, shall we? Random programming. Let's just start there.
Following random programming, or if you go to a gym that does random programming, probably not the best. You're going to see zero progression. Programming is a technique, it's a skill. Take it from somebody who's been learning this entire time. It takes a long time to develop a niche for it and to understand the needs of, if you're coaching group class, the needs of a group is much different than needs of individual. So when you're programming for group class, it's a little bit more, I wouldn't say vague, but it's more general, right? But you have to have a focus. And so it takes a lot of preparation and thought that goes into programming. And it's super important to have good linear programming if you want to see any progress. And also, develop over time, because you have to keep in mind when you're doing group training, people aren't coming in consistently. I mean, they try to, but in reality, right, vacations, sickness, family things all come up. So you have to have a balance during the week so that the people who come in, Monday, Tuesday, miss Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then they come in Saturday, they're still getting an overall balance of strength and conditioning.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, that's a great summary. And take it from someone who has done a bunch of skipped around programs. Yours truly. That's me speaking. Back in the day when I first started CrossFit, I was notorious for skipping around programs. And the main reason was because when I first started CrossFit, really the only resource we had was CrossFit.com.
Yeah, which still exists today.
Which still exists today, and no one really follows it. And at least I don't know.
Is it even like actual? Well, I think now they changed it, right? To who's in charge of the program, the affiliate programming. There's like affiliate program you can buy now, and I think isn't that CrossFit.com?
I believe so. It's CrossFit HQ does it.
Yeah, yes. And so I think there is a general flow to it. I haven't really looked into it too much to know what their cycles are or anything like that, but I really don't know if they do that.
Yeah. So when I first started, there was like OPT, there was CompTrain. CompTrain was out. CompTrain was very new.
Wow.
And then Invictus came out after that. So and then Mayhem came out.
Yes.
And then Proven came out.
Everybody has their own program.
And then Hard Work Pays Off came out. And then believe me, I've tried everything. I've subscribed to them. I bought them all. I've gotten individual programming just because I wanted to try and be like, I thought there was some secret sauce to it.
Yes.
And then you realize that there are probably 10 maybe hyper responders that will do great on the program, because it's specifically, it just happens to fall in line with what they exactly need to work on. But then other people wouldn't respond well because, again, it's such a broad net, broad thing that you're just throwing into that you're not really getting like a true training program for you as an individual.
Yeah. I mean, I really like how you said that, because we have done Invictus together, but like way back in the day.
Way back in the day.
We were doing OPT before that. I remember that. And we have bought many programs because I myself am I wouldn't say self-taught. Matt has taught me many, many things. And otherwise I learned from, purchasing programs, kind of seeing how they do things. And in reality, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Like,
it's who do you want to
hear
hear
from. You
from.
can only do so many different variation and styles. Right. And then you just starts getting silly because people try to make up new things. And it gets
they try
so
to add
stupid.
Novelty
Yeah,
to
exactly. It. And again, we're focused on results and progress. And what's going to get that? Well, there's only a handful of movements that have been proven to get results.
Exactly. And,
right.
and then there's something I kind of want to get into on the programming. And at the end of the day, all these programs are great and they all essentially do the same thing because they all follow the same core principles, but the methodologies are somewhat different.
Yeah.
So principles are just like what we know for a fact works. Like, for example, we know that bench press works. We know that deadlift works. We know that squats work. We know that burpees are good for conditioning. We know that the echo bike sucks. Like we know that running is is effective. Like
Yes.
these basic things, right? But then people take those principles and then they make their own methodology from it. It's like some people have different progressions. Some people will be more creative with their interval style, but at the end of the day, it's all essentially the same.
Yes, exactly. And who you're programming for is going to also dictate basically how you apply those principles, like you said. Like, for example, Marcus Philly has, kind of taken that realm of functional fitness, and he's developed that in-between bodybuilding kind of CrossFit world.
Yeah.
And it's not like that didn't exist before. He just kind of really honed into it and made it a thing, right? And then, you try another training program that's mostly bodybuilding, and for example, IBX or IBEX, I think they call it. They do, there's different styles, but for the most part, I find that they do a lot of bodybuilding style heavily, and then weightlifting kind of totally separate. They don't really combine the two. So it just kind of depends who you want to follow, what type of program you want to follow. And here at Red Wolf, at least, I try to program for the individuals that come to us, and we program 3 different ways so that we can, have a variation for all levels, all skills, all ages.
Right. That is what kind of separates us, is that we actually collect data from the results, and then we're able to plan out our next training cycle based on what we need to do as a whole, as a group. So if we see a glaring weakness, like for example, I think at one point in time, we saw the overhead, like a strict press, it was like a huge deficit. That was quite a while ago, but we really hammered that because everyone did terrible on our testing for that. So we're like, hey, we got to really dial this in. So we dialed that in for everyone. And I will say, just from all the years that I've been training, that the best results I ever got was when I was working individually with a coach. So I spent, it was $350 a month just for programming, and I got my own individual program. And it was 100% tailored towards me, what I need to work on. And then lo and behold, guess what happened? I filled those gaps.
Yeah.
I found the constraints of my fitness. I plugged all the holes in the bucket. And then I was able to, that was when I was actually at my fittest.
Yeah, I like that you said that, because it's going to lead us into a few of our other cons of CrossFit. But when you have a general program for group class, you can only do so much, and then people will start to pick and choose the ones they do. And when you have a coach tailoring the program to you, they're not going to let you get away by not doing your weaknesses. They're going to program your weaknesses. Out of the 7 days, probably 6 of those days are going to be your weaknesses, and 1 day will be your actual good stuff. So that kind of leads us into our other cons.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to number 2, which is no clear progression. This kind of goes hand in hand with programming, but I think this is a huge con of the majority of, and I wouldn't say no clear progression in terms of like long-term goals, because a lot of it is just like, hey, let's just throw you in there. Let's just throw you into intensity. Let's make you work out a lot, and then something good should happen.
Yeah, results will come.
Yeah.
Like, don't wait.
And this is another thing that we do at Red Wolf, is we like to play the long game.
Yeah, and we were kind of struggling with this for a while, I think for a few years, of how to get, people, longtime members, kind of just how do we get them progress? How do we get them motivated to want progress? And that's where the Level Up method board came from. And so in our gym, we have that big board that kind of outlines progression for majority of the principles or the skills that you want to do in the gym. It outlines like back squat, deadlift, strict press, bench press, power clean, all the way down to cardio based stuff and gymnastics as well. Like, how many pull-ups should you do? How many push-ups should you be able to do? And it kind of gives you a clear progression of stages on where to go. And so that's kind of like where the whole thing came from. And I think it helps people understand a little bit better of what is expected before you kind of reach for those big milestones. Yeah,
exactly. When you don't have a clarity on what the end game is on it, and I think that's kind of a thing in fitness where it's really easy to get extremely short-sighted, is that when that happens is that it's really easy to get burned out. It's really easy to get unmotivated. And a lot of people complain about motivation is because they don't even have a target to even aim for in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to kind of like not just think about, where do I want to be in 6 months or a year? It's like, where do you want your fitness to be, 10, 20, 30 years from now, depending how old you are. And when you start to have a better vision of what that looks like, it's easier to work out currently, right? Yes. Because you have that idea of, well, I want to be able to do pull-ups when I'm 60. So when you're like, well, that's in 30 years. So when you give yourself a little bit more leniency on how long this is going to take, then you're more willing to do all the small stuff leading up to it. And in the end, it's going to get you to that target.
Yes. And one thing that is really helpful for me when I think about the long game too, is I feel like I don't have to kill myself every day.
Yes.
Like you don't feel so constrained by it. And so I feel perfectly fine if like today that, I do just the class and I try and sustain that for 6 days a week, because I know that over the long term that I'll be fine. Just because mentally I'm so used to training like 2-3 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And so now that I've gotten out of that mode, which is actually more enjoyable because I enjoy working out a lot more, I'm able to enjoy it more and realize that, hey, even if I'm not that great at something, I just need to work on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I like a little bit every day or like every other day, and I will get there eventually. And it makes me more patient because I'm a very impatient person.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it the best. I mean, right now you're currently working on your handstand push-ups, and I feel like you've been working on handstand push-ups for a really long time, but you kind of really honed into, okay, well, this is where I'm at. And if you do it every day now, you do 20 a day. And I think you really, took into account like, okay, if I just do this every day, I'm going to eventually get there faster than if I kind of burn myself out by doing a ton
on one day and then just taking a break.
Yeah. And then like maybe hitting the goal and be like, okay, I'm done. And then you just stop doing that. And then it, eventually you come back to it and you're like, well, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. What's funny is I just had a conversation with a member at the gym about that because they knew I was doing it, and they asked me about it. And I actually straight up told them, I'm like, this is not the best progression to actually get to my goal. Yeah. However, this is a clear progression. I have clarity because I won't forget. Because the problem is like, I know how to design a training program that will probably be more effective, but let's be honest, am I going to remember to do it? Or
no,
like,
you don't have the time.
Well, I mean, it's like I have so many other focuses that I actually need to hone in on simplicity. So it's so much simple. I will remember to do it every day if I just do 20 a day.
Yep.
That's all I have to do. I can rest as long as I want. My goal is right now my goal is always to get 5 unbroken.
Yeah, and you're
then
doing
I just
that.
walk around and I take a break. I take as long as I need, and I go right back and I do 5 or 6 unbroken.
Yeah.
And then that's just my goal. And then once the 5 is too easy, I'll make it 6, and then I'll make it 7, and then I'll eventually get to my goal of 20 strict handstand push-ups unbroken.
Yes, I mean, simplicity is huge. I think everybody takes on way too much. I mean, it's not your profession. This is a leisure thing that we do for our health. We just try to make it fun so that we don't get bored. I mean, that's the whole point of program design, is like, how can we make the most simple movements, we still do them, we make them enjoyable and kind of exciting and keep pushing us forward, right? Because, I mean, for me personally, I love bodybuilding, but I cannot do true bodybuilding where it is slow paced.
Right.
I have to do it in a faster pace. So it's funny, I think about it a lot. When I'm doing certain movements, I'm like, this is the same thing as single arm dumbbell row, but way more exciting. Like right now we're doing the 100-foot rope pull.
Yeah.
And man, the 100-foot rope pull, if you've never done it before, is extremely difficult, especially when you're trying to maintain the bent over row position. But all I think about is how, like, even though this sucks and you're outside with splinters in your hand and you're pulling this sled, it's way more enjoyable than doing a boring single arm dumbbell row for 10 reps at tempo inside, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing. So anyway, that's just my little tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that's really underlooked when it comes to like clear progression is adherence. The basically the principle that you will actually do it, because believe me, I've been beating around the bush on getting better at strict handstand push-ups ever since I started CrossFit, so 17 years. And I finally have taken action after 17 years to actually get better at it. But the problem was I used to design all these complex training programs on how I would get there. I would look at other people, and I spent all this time planning, but then I would never execute because it was too complicated. It took too much time to plan it out. And then now I was just like, hey, let's just simplify it. Let's just do 20 a day. And let's just see where I end up. And then guess what? I am getting better. And because I simplified it and I made it 20 a day until I get it.
Yep.
Done. That's my programming.
Yes.
All right.
Nailed it.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Number 3, we're going to move into temptation to attempt advanced movements like strict handstand push-ups.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is just going off of the progression. When you have no clear progress on how you're going to get to something, and you're in a group setting with people who are like cheering you on. Hey, yeah, you can do it. Why don't you go and try it? Not always the best advice. Ask a coach before you actually try something. Don't listen to a coach. Sally standing in the corner who's like, yeah, you should try it. Totally. And like you've never done it before.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
not
someone handing you drugs.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun. Snort the cocaine.
Yeah, like the pressure in the group environment is awesome, but it can at the same time be a little bit unbeneficial in that
Right.
sense. So just don't try anything without, proper guidance, a coach, and following the proper progressions. I wouldn't have somebody do a muscle up if they couldn't do strict pull-ups already.
Yes.
It's just not something you should be doing. So it is tempting, and the group class really brings that out of people. But at the same time, remember, this is training. Like, we should be safe.
Yeah, and there's a pros and cons to everything, right? So the pros of being in a group setting is that you will automatically have motivation. You will automatically push a little bit harder than you normally would. You'll be, by default, you will have a better workout
Yeah,
because
you'll
you're
move faster.
put into an environment where it is unreasonable for you to have a good workout.
Yeah.
But then the cons is that you'll be tempted to do things that are outside your wheelhouse or outside your current level of where you're at, and that's okay. It's okay to not be ready for that. And this is what gives, I think, CrossFit in general a bad rap, is because coaches allow it. They allow the peer pressure. The coaches don't have enough of a spine to say, no, you are not ready for that, and they let them try it anyways.
Yes. Yeah, and it is a fine line. I've been there. I've been the coach that's kind of like, I've let people do things. I'm not proud of it or anything, but I've let them do things that I'm like, person really shouldn't be doing that. But then at the same time, you have some people who just surprise you and you're like, oh, wow, they can do it. So, just everybody has to kind of play their own game. And my advice is to always ask a coach first for guidance. What do you think about this? Should I do that? And then kind of go from there.
Yes. And this is exactly why one-on-one coaching is so important, because there are different progressions based on different skill levels and based on different body types.
Yes.
And based on where you're currently at in your overall fitness, and also like where you are at mentally too, like what you're comfortable with. And so the only way to address all those variables is to work one-on-one with a coach to make sure you're not only safe, but you just don't waste your time.
Yeah.
It's because I wasted an entire year relearning how to snatch, because I had such a big ego that I thought that I could just do it. And then lo and behold, once I had a coach and they taught me the proper progressions, and then I had to unlearn all my bad habits and then relearn it, it took me an entire year to do that.
Just a
so
waste
it
of
is
time.
not worth it. So it's worth it to work one-on-one with a coach and to get it figured out and get it done the right way the first time.
Yep, I agree.
Ready to move on to number 4? Okay, perfect. Number 4, this is a good one. Leaderboard pressure. Yes.
Just like how there is group pressure that can be good and bad, there is also leaderboard pressure that can be good and can be bad. Good in the sense that it makes you a little bit more competitive. You look at the leaderboard and you think, oh, Sally got 10 minutes on this workout today. Oh, I think I can push myself to do it in 10 minutes. And then there's leaderboarding, where people are just out to get the fastest time, whatever it takes.
Just fast and furious, reckless abandon, Tokyo drift.
Most reps possible, just even if they're, everybody knows the half rep push-ups, just bam, 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 bam. Yes, nailed it, 100.
The bouncing deadlifts.
Yeah, like
the half burpees.
That's what leaderboarding means. Basically, only doing the work required in order to get the best score so that you can be at the top, instead of just, doing the work that is needed and seeing what you get, and then comparing from there afterwards. That's a skill to learn too. I am guilty of it. In the beginning of CrossFit, I definitely leaderboarded all the time. Not to say my reps were shitty, but I really, really cared about being top of the leaderboard, like all the time. And like that was my main focus, not getting better, not improving my health and fitness. It was just like, can I get the best time or lift the most weight? Like that's all I cared about. So anyway, after that, and when I finally started like working on my weaknesses and stuff and didn't care about the leaderboard, lo and behold, got so much better. Been last multiple times in workouts, and that's okay. As long as you're getting something out of the workout, that's what's most important.
Yeah, and let's kind of address what the leaderboard should be used for. And I believe that this is just my opinion. You can disagree with me. I don't really care, but The leaderboard there is just to give you an idea and to give you a benchmark of what is possible, and to inspire you. And it's also for you to log your workout, so that way you know exactly where you're at.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with leaderboarding, but leaderboard with yourself.
Yeah.
Always, because when I first started CrossFit, I didn't have a leaderboard. I started by myself. I did CrossFit for 2 years by myself. So there was really nothing to compare myself to. I didn't even know that people kept scores against other people at the time. there weren't that many CrossFit gyms back in 2007. So I would just do the workout. And then, for example, I would do Cindy. And if I got 12 rounds, I'd be like, okay, next time I do it, I'm going to try to get 13.
Yep.
And then 9 times out of 10, I would actually PR by 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, now I'm going to try to get 20 rounds because that'd be around a minute.
Yeah.
And then, so I would always leaderboard with myself. And that was way more satisfying
Yes.
to beat myself than it did to beat anyone. Like, it's really, even when I went to regionals and I would test the workouts at the gym, or I would test the snatch, like, for example, one of the regionals, there was a 100 max hang snatch. And I think in practice, I think the best I got was 225, and it was heavy. And then I was warming up at regionals, and I was like, okay, what did I hit in the back? I think I hit like 205 in the warm up station. And then they were actually hustling us out because we got our heat time wrong. So I actually didn't have time to finish warming up for the snatch. And so they corralled us. They're like, no, you guys are up. You're up. So yeah, we had to get in line. Then we stand there for like 10, 15 minutes because
No way.
No, you have to wait. They corral you in there, and then you have to rest for like 10 to 15 minutes, which sucks. That's the worst part, is just waiting to go out there, just waiting
To do the one snatch.
in this stall to do 2 snatches. And so I'm like cooling off. I'm like, I don't even know where I should open. And then I remember I went out there. I'm like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go for 225. Like, I'm just going to do it because I don't know when the next time I'm going to compete. So I throw on 225, I nail it. And I'm like, and it felt light just because I just felt the adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then I went to 240. So I throw on 5s and 2.5s. I was like, all right, anything after this is a bonus because I hit what I kind of, what was heavy and for me in practice. And so this is ice cream on the cake or whatever. What is it? What is that the saying?
Yeah, it is.
So, and then I nailed the 240 and it was easy. I probably could have even gone heavier, but that was one of the most satisfying moments I had competing because I trained a lot leading up to that. And, I didn't win that event by, anywhere close. I think guys got all the way up to like 275.
Yeah.
But I was extremely satisfied with my performance because I did so much better than what I trained to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so but thinking of on the flip side, if I had compared myself to like Kenny competed that year, Andrew competed that year, I think even Josh Bridges got like 265 or something.
Oh, wow.
And so I got wrecks on the snatch workout, but
it could have mentally affected you though if you were leaderboarding.
But it did not get to me at all because I was like, that was like, I'm so happy with it. That was a hang snatch PR. I'm walking away very happy. Yeah.
So yeah, again, summarizing, I mean, you didn't leaderboard leading up to it, which was more beneficial for you mentally and overall, physically, I guess, as well. But yeah, a lot of people will just kind of like look at the leaderboard and then just try to win.
Yeah. And that's actually where leaderboarding actually made sense, was when there's points on the line. Yes. And the CrossFit games are on the line. But
but we're not competing, right? So when you're looking at, logging your scores, I know a lot of people are just kind of up and down when they're with logging your score. Just think of it, it's more about you. I love a lot of people get really caught up in like, oh, did you log it right? Or did you log it onto the right one? Oh, you modified and you didn't put that you modified. Like,
or so-and-so was doing half reps.
Yeah. And, we all know the truth. It's okay. Like,
we know who you are.
As long as you are doing it for you and your progress and you're happy with that, that's all that matters.
Yeah. At the end of the day, just focus on yourself. No one's going to be perfect. People are going to do things wrong, or you're not going to agree with, quote unquote, the scoreboard. But at the end of the day, like, there's nothing really on the line in a CrossFit class, guys. Like, you're not going to win $10 million.
That's about it.
You might get a little bit of bragging rights, but at the end of the day, like, you rep shavers, we will find you.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Let's move on to the next one. We have high intensity all the time.
Yeah. And this kind of goes in with the first one, programming. Like, so if you go to a gym or you follow a training program that pretty much does high intensity every day, HIIT, right, is the known term, every day. Again, you're not going to see progress. You're going to get burnt out real quick. And that's why good programs, follow cycles. They understand like, oh, what's going to be sore the next day or 2 days after, and kind of program with that in mind. And that's kind of why Matt and I both take class, is so that we can be really in it with our members and we can feel it. We know exactly what it's going to feel like, and, where we can push and just, following that progression. Because when you just do high intensity every day, your stress hormones are just firing like crazy. I mean, we already live in an overstimulating world. And so the last thing most working adults need is high intensity every single day. That's just going to burn you out real quick.
Yeah. And when we say high intensity, we mean like all out effort to the point where you're laying on the ground after the workout. Like the majority of the times, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, you should get to that point where you're just all out effort.
Yeah.
And then the other times you should be pushing to where you should always be somewhat, in my opinion, you should always be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Every time you do a workout, but you don't need to go to failure
Yes.
on every workout.
Yeah, I like how you put that. Like, you should be uncomfortable when you're working out. You shouldn't be having a full conversation. Like, that's not the type of pace we're talking about. But, you know, there's different levels of intensity as far as, you know, a 5 to 10 minute workout going really hard, and then being able to last for a 30 to 40 minute workout where we're breathing heavy and maybe we're moving around a lot, but we can keep moving, right? The whole time. That's the whole point, is that you can keep moving. So make sure you're following a program that is very balanced in that sense, and that one that you can follow for a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think people overlook is that I think people are well aware of overtraining, and they think of a lot of it like when it comes to muscle soreness or central nervous system fatigue, but you can overdo it with energy system training as well. Like you can be way too biased towards aerobic training and to where you're neglecting like the alactic energy system, and you can be and CrossFit is notorious for spending way too much time in the glycolytic arena, which is like that high power lactate burning, I can't breathe, my lungs burn, I'm going to fall over after the workout kind of intensity.
Yeah. That's where they get the rap from.
Yes, exactly. And don't get me wrong, like that is probably one of the best ways to get fitter, because you're doing the perfect combination of both. You're really pushing your aerobic system, you're also pushing lactate, and also your alactic or creatine phosphate system is all working synergistically together to do it. That's what made CrossFit effective and attractive to people in the first place, was like, oh, I can hit all 3 energy systems, all 3 main energy systems in one workout in a very short amount of time. Like more bang for my buck.
Exactly.
But the problem is if you do that all the time and you're not also training only in an aerobic state and only in a creatine phosphate state, that's when things are going to be, you could potentially lead to burnout. And also when you do train in that creatine phosphate state and that aerobic state, that will make your CrossFit better, because not only will that give that energy system time to repair and recover, because it takes time to recover from that energy system, just like it does from your nervous system or your muscles. So, for example, the glycolytic system can take up to 2 to 3 days to recover, depending on how intense the workout is. The aerobic system recovers a lot faster because it's oxygen. And then the creatine phosphate system can recover up to 90 seconds, depending on what you're doing. So all these different variables come into play, and then this is exactly why it's incredibly important to be working with somewhat of a one-on-one environment with a coach, or being on a dedicated training program where at least you have a coach you can talk to who knows what the training plan is.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention, everybody's recovery is different. And so, I mean, if you're not doing well in nutrition, if you're not sleeping well, then you're just putting yourself more behind as well. And you cannot do high intensity every single day. I mean, Matt and I train a lot of one-on-one clients, and I would never make one of my one-on-one clients like do high intensity multiple times a week. I mean, maybe we do one workout that's kind of high intensity, but for the most part, they're doing workouts that are very long paced, a lot of lifting. I mean, they're uncomfortable and breathing hard, but we're talking about more duration here.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope I didn't go on too much of a rant.
Nope.
Okay, perfect. Let's move on to number 6. We have variable coaching quality. Now, we don't have this problem here, thank God. But this is something that Caitlin and I have seen, and this is specifically why we don't drop into CrossFit gyms.
Yeah, I mean, you just never know what you're going to get. Everybody has a level 1, but that means nothing, honestly.
Really, oh my God. Don't get me started.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, anybody can get a level 1 and say that they're a CrossFit coach. But yeah, coaching styles, abilities, training level, all different from every single gym. And
it's really hard to be a good coach.
It is. It's very challenging to coach a group class. I mean, I think a lot of people, one reason why it's hard to find a group coach is because not a lot of people want to do it. Coaching one-on-one is much easier. Maybe more exhausting mentally and socially because you are one-on-one, but it is easier in the sense that you only have to work with one person.
Yeah.
When you have to work with a group 10 to 20 people.
There's a lot of touch points.
Yes, a lot of touch points, a lot of corralling is like what we like to call it. It's like corralling, sheep, goats, whatever you want to call it, chickens. Everybody like trying to do one thing at once and on the same time page and all that stuff. So it's very interesting to go to other CrossFit gyms and see how they manage their classes and how they coach in general. But definitely not something that we do often because I avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's some of like, when it comes to variable coaching quality, what are some things that you wish would be different?
Number one, knowledge. I think a lot of CrossFit level 1 coaches, at least, like I said, anybody can get it. It's like when you start to go into level 2, level 3, these are like the people who kind of dedicate their life to fitness and, they are more knowledgeable in, variation, scaling, progression. And that's really important when you're in a group setting because you have to be able on the fly, be able to think of a new movement for somebody to do. Oh, my knee's hurting right now. I can't squat anymore. Well, what if your coach isn't very knowledgeable? They're going to be like, well, I guess you can go bike or something. Like they're not going to give you anything for that.
Exactly. They'll just kind of blow you off.
Yes. And so being knowledgeable is super important. I think more coaches need to have that as far as a database goes in their mind. And then like energy level, right? Being able to match the class. I mean, and every class is different. You'd know that if you come to multiple classes at Red Wolf, at least you know that like each class has their niche and their thing, and being able to connect each class and together, like that's super important as well for the coach to do that.
Yeah, and I think it all falls back on the owner of the gym. At the end of the day, the owner of the gym is the leader and is responsible for the output that their employees put out there to their membership. And I think a lot of times that it's really easy to get lazy when it comes to that. And I've been guilty of that as well. But that's something I've been working on to get a lot better at. Like, for example, last Saturday I met with Kim. We met for an hour, and the only thing we went over was how exactly day one of onboarding a new client was. Like everything down from air squat, back squat, front. We just went over the fundamentals. I'm like, this is exactly the progressions that you should be going through with the air squat. Now let's go over the back squat. Now let's go over the front squat. Now let's go over how they should set up the bike, what kind of stretches they should be doing on day one. Okay. How to assess them to make sure that they're comfortable, but they're pushing themselves. And also, what's the appropriate amount of reps for them to do based on each client, because everything is customized at our gym, especially when we onboard new clients. Like we have a general template that we kind of go over because we have to cover all our principal movements, our baseline movements. But from there, we customize an entire workout for them. So that way they're getting the best workout for them to progress them into training full time with us. And that's painfully boring. Yeah. Because I don't enjoy that. I don't like. No one likes the fundamentals. Yeah. But we all know that
it's needed.
You have to be. It's like the fundamentals repeated over and over and over again is the only way to actually become excellent at anything. And so that's something that I've been working on too as a coach, because I know that whoever I put on the floor to coach my members is going to be a direct reflection of the quality and effort that I put into my staff.
Yeah, I like how you said that. We also make sure that our coaches coach across a schedule, right? They coach the same time, the same day, every single week. And that's really important more so for our members, because then you develop this bond and exactly like, hey, last week you did 35 pounds on deadlift or whatever, and this week I want you to do 45. And the reason why I know that is because I see you every Monday, every Saturday, whatever, and that helps the members at least know who they're going to be coached by, and it's consistent in that sense, and that they're always getting the same cues, and we're teaching literally how to progress forward.
Yeah, I love how you said that. That's a great point, because that's the thing, is that there are other gyms where they're just ran by a bunch of part-timers, so you're getting a different coach every time. In fact, one of our members, that was one of their main complaints of why they came over from another gym, was they're like the gym was fine, the people were great, the coaching wasn't bad, but the problem, they said the main issue was with them was that they would always, every day they would come in, they would have a different coach who had no idea even who they were.
Yeah.
Because they were so that this part-time coach was there once a week.
Like constantly thinking, hi, who are you? You're new. And you're like, I've been here for like months.
So that they and no information's relayed across the team. So like you're coming in, you're like, okay, well, so-and-so had me modify this yesterday. What about today? And then they're like,
yeah.
And so that was their number one complaint, was that
prime example.
Yeah, was that it was just too inconsistent, not necessarily with the quality of the workouts, but with the coaching itself.
Yes. Yeah. So, perfect example. Yeah. I agree.
And then that got me kind of fired up, and I was like, well, let me tell you how we do things. And then they've been very happy ever since then.
Awesome.
Let's see. Last one. Let's move it on. We're doing limited focus on individual needs, and we kind of talked about this.
Yeah, we covered it from pretty much every single one. But I mean, like Matt said, individual programming is going to be the fastest and most effective way to get you results.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are crammed for time, if you have something very specific you need to train for example, a few of our members are currently training for the High Rocks this weekend. And, they told me at least a few weeks in advance, hey, we're going to be doing this event. I'm like, cool. So I've kind of tailored the programming in the sense to help these people train for this event.
And you also changed out build and burn as well.
Yeah. And I changed out build and burn so that, we could touch on all the movements that they're going to be doing at this competition. And, I generally do that for anyone, really. If you tell me that you're kind of leading up to something, okay, great. Like we can work on these things. Matt and I have written dozens and dozens of programs for
way
running.
More than a dozen.
If you want to train, we trained someone before for multiple Ironmans. If you want to train for that, like great, like let's put you on a program designed for that. Only a very small amount of people can do a generalized program like CrossFit and be able to go out there and compete in anything, right? There's maybe like three to five people who are very athletic, who can kind of just wing it in that sense and still perform decent. For the majority of us, you need a very specific program to yourself in order to do well at whatever you're trying to train for. So that's where individual programming comes in. And that'll really help you, accelerate your progress even faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give some context on my background, and I know this is going to come off as a humble brag, but I'm going to say it anyways, is that over my entire coaching career, I've worked with over 500 one-on-one clients, and I've also worked with over 10,000 people across all the gyms that I've worked at, including my own over the last 12. So 17 years total, 12 of my own. And I can tell you that we've really dialed in our training protocols simply because of all the mistakes I've seen and all the mistakes I've made over all those years. I worked at two gyms that one was way too extreme on tailoring towards being way too easy to the point where people didn't get results and they actually left because they weren't getting results because it was
too easy.
They were babying them.
Yeah.
And I've also been on the opposite end where I was at a gym that was way too competitive. It was way too much of a bro sesh.
Yes.
And
turned people off too.
Which turned people off. So, and then I was like, I'm so grateful for those experiences because I'm like, I can find a middle ground to where I can actually help people and I can give people a little bit of taste of both.
Yeah.
And so, and then through that, that's why we have different levels of our gym. This is why we have, one thing that you guys don't know that goes on behind the scene is that we relay information individually of each individual client to every single one of the coaches. So we know that so-and-so is doing this progression, or so-and-so is, maybe has like a bum knee or something, or temporarily we're going to modify this for their groin or something because they pulled their groin doing something on the weekend.
Yeah.
So that is all like, one of my favorite quotes is from Alex Hormozi when he says, everyone's looking for the magic bullet, but it's really 100 golden BBs.
Yeah.
And so I used to think that by creating a gym, I thought that the programming was like the magic bullet.
Yeah.
But really what it came down to was all these 100 golden BBs of treating people as individuals, not as a group, and kind of digging into my personal training background and being like, okay, how can we individualize this as much as possible in a group setting? And then that's where kind of Red Wolf was kind of born out of in terms of our values and what we want to accomplish with our training. And this is why people get such fast results with us in such a short amount of time. I mean, you just told me that 2 clients lost 3% body fat in 4 weeks. Yeah. That you just finished up.
Yep. The 2 brand new people who just finished up the 4-week ramp up that we do, they lost 3% body fat, and they gained 4 pounds of muscle. So their body composition totally changed in just 1 month. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I just did 3 scans over the past week or so. Same thing, like either 2 to 3% body fat and an average of 2 to 3 pounds of muscle gain in about a month.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time. So we have data to back it up. Like I said, like we back things up with data from our training. We back things up with data from our body composition scans. And this is how we make decisions moving forward with our training program. that we just don't guess. We actually assess.
Yeah, I think assessment and follow through is super important. I mean, if you look back, in your childhood, whenever you did science, whatever science class you were in, and you do like a project, like a research project, right? You do a hypothesis, you test it fully, and then at the end, you'd come up with results. Well, I think a lot of times people, have this goal, this hypothesis, like I want to lose 10 pounds. And then they come up with this plan, but they actually don't follow through with the plan at all. They kind of do this, kind of do that. And then at the end, they're like, it didn't work. Well, you didn't even actually do the test, So being able to use data and do your in-body scan, check in with your coach, daily, and then making sure you come. Like we do all those things for you because we know it works and we know it's going to get you those results. And you cannot sidestep any of them or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what the average CrossFit group class outside of this is severely lacking, is that one-on-one touch.
Yeah.
And that, that focus on individual needs is just it's not even a forethought. It's not even afterthought, because they just throw a workout on the board, put you through some intensity, maybe take you through a few progressions in the warm up, and then they just kind of say 3, 2, 1, go, and then they're over there on their phone in the corner.
Yeah, that's definitely like something I've heard about other CrossFit gyms. Like that's where it just gets that bad rap of, people are just super intense and nobody really gets coached, and the coaches are just the athletes themselves and they work out, and it's just it's so unprofessional in that sense. And I feel like CrossFit gyms need to be a little bit more professionalized, more individualized, and that's kind of where they'll start to grow.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part is a lot of them won't, because that requires a lot of hard work.
Oh, yeah. A lot of hard work. And a lot of people started CrossFit gyms, for fun, kind of like,
because they wanted a cool place to work out.
They wanted their own gym to work out, and it was cool, and their friends could be there, and they're like, yeah, this can totally work. But then in reality, when you're really trying to get people results and build the business, like, okay, well, there's a lot more that goes on than that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So just to summarize, everybody, the 7 cons of CrossFit: we have random programming. Please don't program skip. Find something that works for you, or a coach that can work with you, and stick to it for the long haul in order to see results. By skipping around, believe me, take it from experience, it will not work. Mm-hmm. Number 2, we have no clear progression. So remember, think of the long game. Think of like how long you're going to be doing this, and be okay with not looking as cool doing a certain movement, and accepting the fact that it will come at some point. Mm-hmm. Number 3, we have temptation to attempt to advance movements. Okay, so again, definitely work one-on-one with a coach. Don't listen to someone just egging you on.
Yeah.
Please do, whenever you do it, please do under supervision or ask a coach, and please learn how to do it safely first. Number 4 is leaderboard pressure. Now, remember that the leaderboard is you, okay? Compare yourself to you, because that's all, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, because everyone you're comparing yourself to, you'll eventually forget about anyways. Let's be real. It's true.
It is true. That's a great point.
Number 5, high intensity all the time. We want to make sure it's just like a balanced meal. Like you wouldn't eat only protein 7 days a week. You're going to want to have some starches, you're going to want to have some vegetables, you're going to want to have some healthy fats. So just like with how you eat, you want to make sure your energy systems are well balanced as well. And number 6, we have variable coaching quality. Okay, you want to make sure that you have a consistent coach or coaches who share information to make sure that the training program that you're on is effective, safe, and that you're actually getting the right progressions and the attention that you deserve. And number 7, we talked about limited focus on individual needs, and that is one of our biggest takeaways from this podcast. If you remember anything, it's remember that at the end of the day, fitness is highly individual. And I think that kind of encompasses the entire podcast, is that the more one-on-one attention you can get, the better.
Yes, I agree.
All right.
Great summary.
Any other final thoughts?
No.
All right.
Covered it all.
Well, thank you so much for listening. If this was helpful, please leave us a 5-star review so we know to make more content just like this. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit, and please DM your content suggestions there. We'd love to get some more ideas from you. Until next time, good luck. Have fun.
Nailed it.